The reason I personally supported Bernie Sanders at the very beginning is because I truly believed he was a revolutionary. I truly believed he was a chink in the chain. And I understood from Bush to Obama to Hillary that there was a chain of commands, that there was a puppet system in place for people to continue the same exact agenda that I just totally didn't agree with. And I totally realized was just so fake and just so dishonest that I was tired of it. So when Bernie came out, being outside of the party system, that's what drew me to Bernie Sanders. It was never his socialist policies. And I noticed something that nobody's going to tell you, but I'm going to tell you. Everybody liked Bernie Sanders for a different reason. I went to so many rallies, so many events. I've met thousands of people who like Bernie Sanders. And I'd always ask them, what do you like about Bernie Sanders? Some people would say, well, I have a lot of money in debt for education, so I like Bernie Sanders because free education, I don't want to be in debt. Some people would say, I had a really bad family health experience and I want, free healthcare for everybody. It's not free, but you know what I mean, universal, socialized government healthcare. Overall, so everyone I talked to liked him for a specific reason. So people always say to me, oh, you must have been a socialist. You must have liked him for socialist. And it's like, it's same with Trump. Everybody who likes Trump isn't like a super conservative or Republican. Some people are tired of Hillary Clinton. Some people don't like, far leftism. Some people don't like tech censorship. Some people just like the fact that he seems like a real guy and it's like talking to your uncle or your cousin. So everybody likes Trump for different reasons, just like everyone liked Bernie for different reasons. Me, I never agreed, just to be completely honest, I never agreed with he would say $15 minimum wage. People loved that and thought it was great. Me, I was playing a bigger game. I was like, Bernie's breaking the media down. He's breaking the puppet structure. I don't agree with him on that policy because my personal perspective, we could talk about this for an hour, but my thoughts about $15 minimum wage, Subway can afford $15 minimum wage. Walmart can afford $15 minimum wage, but small businesses and mom and pop shops and, small restaurants can't afford to pay dishwashers $15 an hour. It would, in my personal perspective, I never thought that was a good idea because I was like, that sounds like it's going to lead a lot of small businesses and mom and pop shops out of business and just fuel the corporate fire, because they have the money and the budget to do that, although they don't. So I never was a huge policy fan, but I will say he really captured me with his words. I made the Bernie Sanders trap anthem. I really believed in him. And the way he was talking, he sounded like a revolutionary. He presented himself like he was anti-establishment. He presented himself like he was outside of the political system, that he was going to fight for the people against the politicians. That's what I really loved. And to be honest, I believed him. I thought he was going to do it. I thought he was going to go all in and push against the establishment. So, I'm watching him go on. And I have to say, the reason I'm here today is because I knew, even when it was going on, I was like, you know what? Just like with Donald Trump, we got to keep an eye on this guy because if he turns the wrong way and leads everybody off a cliff, I'm not the type of person to go off a cliff. And if you guys want to be really honest, a lot of Trump supporters liked Bernie Sanders too before he dropped out because they were connecting with him on a spiritual and, energetic level. They were like, dang, this guy's really going to give Hillary Clinton a run for her money. So I knew Trump supporters that liked Bernie Sanders at the time. So, I really believed what he was saying. But I did start to notice towards the end, and I was very vocal about it, and I was trying to warn people, but, nobody was listening. I was like, isn't it a little strange? It started to get a little weird to me during his campaign when he just kept saying the same 4 things on repeat. You go to Trump's Twitter, of course he does have his agenda that he says all the time, but he also makes a lot of loose cannon plays. He'll call out this person, call out that person, call out this news, call out that news, could do that, do this. Trump has done 50 million different things. Of course he has his overarching conservative style agenda, but he does a lot of loose non-puppet type stuff. But Bernie Sanders, what I was noticing during his campaign, even as a supporter, I started to notice this guy sounds like a pull string doll. Pull. Universal health care for everybody. Pull. Oh, the poor people are starving and I'm going to help. Pull. It's like he had one of 5 catchphrases that he just continuously repeated on his Twitter and he never strayed from that norm. And I started to realize, I was like, man, why doesn't this guy say anything else but those 5 things on loop? Is he a robot or does he have something else to contribute? And then I started to notice when big events started happening, when he started getting cheated out, he didn't say a word. It was actually his supporters who were doing all the work. They were paying him $180+ million, I believe his campaign received. And his people were doing all the heavy lifting, and Bernie kind of just let everybody, get just continuously punched in the face. Every single day I felt like supporting Bernie Sanders, I was getting punched in the face, punched. Every which way I turned, I was getting punched. The censorship was already starting to begin during the Bernie Sanders era. The media was cheating us out. During New York, I believe he got purged a couple 100,000 voters that suspiciously, many of them were Bernie Sanders supporters. They got purged from the New York voter roll. In the first state that they voted, Hillary was supposed to have a huge landslide. She didn't, and there were reports that like 5 coin flips decided who won the state. 5 coin flips. This is not me saying this. These are reports. And I'm like, why is this guy not mentioning this stuff? I noticed that during the campaign, as many people realize now, even a lot of progressive socialists, they started realizing, man, this guy's really not standing up for us. And then, every which way he got cheated, from the CNN questions to the purge of the voter rolls to the very suspicious activities all around, to the fact now we found out via, major mainstream news sources that the DNC was basically purchased, that they were in debt, and Hillary, gave them multiple millions of dollars. That was, I believe, Donna Brazile and other, mainstream outlets that proved that. So Bernie never said a word about that. It's almost like he didn't want to win, which is fine. But where it crosses the line to me is that Bernie took $180 million from people. So these people didn't give Bernie Sanders $180 million to flop over and fake pretend like he was going to take on Hillary Clinton and really just kowtow and, campaign for her. People gave Bernie Sanders $180 million because they were super opposed to Hillary Clinton and they really wanted Bernie Sanders to be the nominee. So if it is true that it was a bought-out organization and Bernie Sanders had zero chance to begin with, he gave pretty much no fight. He let his supporters do all the heavy lifting and never once really stood up for anybody or ever stuck his nose out to say pretty much anything about any of the cheating that happened. That's pretty messed up. So, $180 million raised. Bernie loses, decides to campaign for Hillary. I still gave Bernie Sanders support. I still gave him a pass. I was like, you know what? Maybe he got threatened. Maybe he just, couldn't win and now he's doing what he thinks is best. I even gave him a pass. I even gave him a pass when they said he bought his 2nd or 3rd house, his vacation home. So I was like, wait a second. So this guy just says the same thing on repeat on Twitter every day. Never stood up for his supporters. Never stood up for Jared Beck and Elizabeth Beck, the Beck family that had the DNC fraud lawsuit. They sued the DNC. The processor of the DNC lawsuit, Sean Lucas, dropped dead. Seth Rich, who would have been would have testified possibly in that lawsuit, dropped dead. They're suing the DNC. News is covering it. Bernie Sanders never said a word on it. Now, people like Tim Canova going against Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Bernie's not even supporting this month, and progressive analysts like Jimmy Dore calling him out. They're like, bro, why aren't you supporting Tim Canova? I mean, that's fast forward. I don't want to get to now, but I'm just saying, overall, I'm like, wow, this guy really leaves his supporters hanging. He really doesn't care, not even to say a word about him. So I gave him a pass anyway. I still gave him a pass. I said, you know what? He took $180 million from people, didn't really put up a fight, didn't really say anything, never really tweeted or talked about everybody taking blows for him, campaigned for Hillary Clinton, but I still gave him a pass. I still said, you know what? I voted third party. I voted for Jill Stein. I wasn't feeling Trump. I knew it wouldn't matter in my state. I knew Trump stood no chance, unfortunately, to be honest. And I thought maybe if we got Jill Stein or Gary Johnson to 5 or 15%, they'd be allowed in the debates one year, and I would love to see a 3-way debate. So that's why I voted for Jill Stein. It was a strategic vote. Say what you want about Jill Stein, but she definitely has some interesting perspective that you're not going to hear from Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton. So I want to get Jill Stein in the debate. Why not? Mix it up a little bit, get some more. I mean, the debates were pretty stale this year. So fast forward past the election. So Trump wins the election. Hillary Clinton loses. Bernie Sanders loses, basically. The Young Turks, all the socialists who wanted Hillary to win are all upset and sad. I still didn't hate or dislike Bernie Sanders. I still don't hate him. I'm going to start with the positives. I still appreciate what Bernie did is he awoke a lot of people. He got me interested. So, I don't fight reality. If it wasn't for Bernie Sanders, I wouldn't be on the progression I'm on today, most likely. Maybe I would have. Maybe I would have liked Trump earlier. Maybe I wouldn't have. Who knows? But I appreciate him for energizing a lot of people and getting a lot of people woken up to the fact that our political establishment is corrupt. Now people who follow Bernie Sanders know, I never knew, the Democratic primary is ridiculously rigged. They have super delegates, I believe 500 to like 750, I don't know how many super delegates. So, it's a race to 2,100, but somebody has 500, 600 unelected delegates who just vote their way. So Bernie would get like 60-something% of the votes, and Hillary would still win the state because there's unelected super delegates only on the Democratic Party side. Isn't that funny? My whole life I've been conditioned and brainwashed to hate on the Republican Party and think that the Democratic Party is better. But what do you know? The Republican Party allows a real outsider like Donald Trump to win, and the Democratic nominee and the media complex cheated Bernie Sanders every which way, including rigged delegates that the Republican Party side doesn't even have. So isn't that strange? So thank you, Bernie, for showing how corrupt the Democratic primary is. I appreciate that. Fast forward to now, the era we're in. So Trump wins, and Trump starts doing a few things that Bernie wanted to do. He ended the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which was a cornerstone of Bernie's campaign and a cornerstone of a lot of progressive socialists who've been fighting it for 10 plus years, even before I knew about it. So as Trump started to do things that Bernie wanted to do, like end the TPP, which is not a small deal, what he did there and ending the Paris Climate Exchange and how he's kind of backing out of these European, unions or whatever you want to call them that are basically like letting Europe dictate the United States, which is exactly why we left in 1700s, so they wouldn't do that. And somehow we put ourselves back in the hands of Europe and let them call the shots. And do things that literally not only weren't helping the environment, but weren't helping our trade deals, our economy, our people. Nothing was helping. So Trump backed out of those agreements like the TPP. Bernie really was not quick to compliment him. He was actually still just attacking him for other things. So I was like, man, does this guy Bernie Sanders even care about the TPP? Because I saw a lot of progressive socialist supporters congratulate and thank Trump for doing that, but I didn't really see Bernie Sanders say a big word about it. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. So fast forward, as we're getting further, Bernie starts to turn more and more and more and more into an establishment shill. He starts to say, oh, how dare Trump attack the media? Ooh, Trump shouldn't call out the media. That's dangerous to a democracy. The democracy that literally cheated you out with superdelegates and rigged media, the same newspapers, the same New York Times and Washington Post and Politico and all of these, MSNBC, CNN, ABC, NBC, all the mainstream media that literally rigged the election against Bernie Sanders, would never give him favorable coverage and literally just try to put it in the bag for Hillary. Now all of a sudden, Bernie is a watch attack dog for that media, saying, how dare you criticize the media? I'm like, wow, that's a big 180 there. So now Bernie not only doesn't say anything about the media that cheated him out, rigged him, and basically, brainwashed our population for 20 years, now he's actually working for them, attacking people who are speaking about it. And then Bernie Sanders started going, well, what did he say? Oh, he said on TV that if people that liked him didn't like Hillary Clinton, which was like millions of his supporters literally liked him and not Hillary Clinton, which is fine. I mean, you don't have to like both of them. Just like you could like Hillary and not like Bernie. But Bernie suggested on TV that it was Russian influence that decided to make people not like Bernie Sanders. So now not only is Bernie Sanders defending the mainstream media that cheated him, now he's actually attacking his own supporters, saying he thinks so lowly of us and so lowly of you that if you don't like Hillary Clinton and you like Bernie Sanders, there's no possible way it could be because you like his policies or him personally or you trust him more. He thinks so lowly of you that he thinks it must be Russian influencing and Russia brainwashing to make you not like Hillary Clinton because Bernie Sanders told you to like her. So if you don't listen to him, it's got to be the Russians. So Bernie Sanders now is putting his hand into the tech censorship because the Russia and alt-right labels have been used to censor and silence people off social media. Isn't it weird that Alex Jones got censored off all social media platforms, but Richard Spencer of the alt-right didn't? They claim that, and I'm not saying that they should censor Richard Spencer of the alt-right. I think everybody should be able to speak their mind and debate. But isn't it weird that it's the Russians, it's the alt-right, Alex Jones has to go, Anomaly has to go, everyone has to go. Bernie's kind of playing right into that with the, oh, you don't agree with what I'm trying to tell you to agree with, and it must be Russian influence. So every which way, this guy has totally just done an absolute backflip. And I could go on, and I'm going to talk about other progressive analysts, but I want to talk about as well something that he tweeted yesterday. And this is the main thing that I can't stand about Jimmy Dore anymore. I like Jimmy Dore. I appreciate him. I stand up for him all the time. But I find him very, very intellectually dishonest. I find Caitlin Johnstone dishonest. I schooled her on Twitter the other day. She doesn't want to debate me. That's fine. I wouldn't want to either. You know, Kyle Kalinske, the Young Turks, all of these progressive leaders, here's what they won't tell you. And I'm going to break down Bernie's tweet and tell you something that they're never going to tell you. And I'm down to debate it. If any of those people wants to debate me, I'm with it. So Bernie puts out a tweet and he says, remember our crazy idea of universal health care is a reality in, and he named like 15 or 20, developing or first world countries that have socialist health care and have extreme left-wing policies, not only socially, but, strategically as well. I mean, systemically as well. So I can just debunk half of those countries that he named and tell you what he's not telling you about those countries. So one of the countries on the list was Denmark. Is Denmark a perfect leftist utopia of socialism and beautiful healthcare? Absolutely not. They've recently implemented a burqa ban. Imagine if they did a burqa ban in the United States. Leftists and socialists like Bernie Sanders would be freaking out. Jimmy Dore would be freaking out. They'd be saying, racism, oh my God, it's so racist and xenophobic to have a burqa ban. But that's literally happening in Denmark. They have a burqa ban. They're nationalizing kids. If there's Islamic families that don't want to, implement Western or Denmark culture into their life and they want to do their own thing, Denmark is not only banning the burqa, but they're vowing to take the kids and nationalize them into Denmark culture and lifestyle. And also they're implementing, according to multiple reports in Denmark, they're implementing 2 times the amount of crime violation for ghettos. So imagine if that happened in the United States. If you're in a Denmark ghetto or a no-go zone, or basically a place where all the refugees came that is out of control now, that Bernie Sanders, Jimmy Dore, Caitlin Johnstone, Kyle Kalinske, the Young Turks will never talk about, that's what Denmark's doing. Could you imagine? And I'm going to get down the whole list. So if you're a Bernie Sanders supporter or a disliker, you got to hear this. So he's praising Denmark for their universal health care, but it was leftist and socialist social ideology that has led to Denmark having a burqa ban, nationalizing kids, and implementing 2 times the charges in ghettos. If that ever happened in the United States, it would be Bernie Sanders, Caitlin Johnstone, Jimmy Dore, the Young Turks, and Kyle Kalinske screaming racism, sexism, and Hitler's back, putting people into camps. Yet that's happening in Denmark, and they won't mention a word about it. All they talk about is how great universal socialist healthcare is in Denmark, but socialism, that is not working in Denmark, because you can't get this socialism universal healthcare ideology without this failed, twisted, pandering identity politics ideology that every leftist has, from Linda Sarsour to Bernie Sanders to Jimmy Dore to Sean King to all of these people. So Denmark is not a liberal utopia. They are literally doing extreme stuff to try to ramp in their extremism, and no socialist will talk about it. Let's move on to France. Another country on his list was France. Just in the last 24 hours, somebody was stabbed and murdered again. I've talked to multiple people who've been to France recently. All the locals are telling you, don't go there, don't go there. And people, all my friends are like, no, I've been to France every day for the last 15 years. I've been to France every year. For the last 15 years, I've been there. And they're like, no, you don't understand. This is not the Paris, France that you once visited. It's, really going downhill. And I'm not saying it's terrible. It's still a beautiful, amazing place, but it's mainstream news that they built a terrorist fence around the Eiffel Tower. So now when you go and visit the Eiffel Tower, it's not just standing there peacefully. There's a terrorist fence there. Why would they build a terrorist fence? Well, there must be a lot of terror to the point where they thought that was a good idea. You have crime is up, and I don't need BBC or something to report it 2 years ago. I've been reporting on this in Sweden. I'll get to it later. And BBC just did a report of it yesterday. For 2 years, they called me a liar, and they called Paul Joseph Watson a liar. And now all of a sudden, they got all their research and data together, and they found out exactly what me and Paul Joseph Watson have been saying for 2 years is 100% true. And the mainstream media is 2 years behind. Oh, wow, what do you know? So France, once again, is not a liberal socialist healthcare utopia. It's a failing state that is going downhill. Emmanuel Macron, his approval rating is ridiculously low. It's way lower than Donald Trump's. They're having protests there all the time for unions and so many other things. And it's not a socialist utopia. Crime is on the rise. Murder's on the rise. No-go zones are on the rise. Homelessness is on the rise. Terrorism's on the rise. And it's very, very well documented in mainstream media and independent media. But Bernie Sanders wants to bring up how great socialism in France is without talking about the incredible downsides. It's absolutely failing in France as well. Bernie Sanders had the nerve to put Greece on that list. He said, remember our crazy idea of universal health care? It's a reality in Greece. Greece had one of the biggest economic and economy collapses in Europe that we've ever seen in at least my lifetime. Unemployment was up, I don't know how much, 20, 30, 40. It was ridiculously skyrocketing in Greece. I mean, there's not really much I can say about Greece. It's an amazing place. I'm sure it's beautiful and incredible, and I love Greek people. I love Greek food. I love Greek culture. Some of my best friends are Greek. But let's be honest, socialism is not this flawless utopia in Greece. I mean, they had the biggest economic collapse we've ever seen recently, and it plunged, the working and lower class people in Greece to some of the lowest lows that they've seen in the modern era. I could talk about that all day, but just Google Greece economy, Greece, collapse. I mean, it literally just happened. Hungary, he mentioned Hungary, and he said, remember our crazy idea of universal health care? It's a reality in Hungary. But what he won't tell you about Hungary is one reason that if it does work well, I'm not there to know, but they're very, very strict on immigration. They're very, very strict on propaganda. And it's mainstream reports that George Soros' foundation, Open Society Foundation, is leaving Hungary in August 2018. So here's something that you'll never do, Bernie Sanders or Jimmy Dore or any of these people, is, no disrespect to George Soros, but that's a pretty big difference between the United States and here. George Soros funds billions of dollars into Brexit in the UK, multiple countries across Europe, and pours billions upon billions upon billions of dollars into the United States to basically push his agenda in the United States. And you talk about the universal health care in Hungary, but you don't talk about their strict immigration policy, and you're not talking about the fact that they recently, outed the Soros Open Society Foundation. I mean, they literally had ads all over the city. You could find them online where there were anti-Soros ads. And I'm not hating on Soros, but I'll tell you, Hungary was, and Bernie Sanders won't talk about it. Let's move to Italy. Bernie Sanders had the audacity to lie to his organization, and you could follow. There's not a single, and this is why I say this, Jimmy Dore will never talk about this. Kyle Kulinski will never talk about this. Caitlin Johnstone will never talk about this. The Young Turks will never talk about this. Any progressive socialist leader will constantly reference all of these countries that I'm going through, and they will never mention a single word about what I'm saying. It's not working. It's not working great. It's not working well. It's not working fantastically. Leftist ideology and socialist ideology, this fake leftism, pandering, I love people more than you do, I'm going to change everything for the better, it's failing in half of, if not more than half of the countries that they always mention all the time. So bring it up to them. If you watch me and them, so do I. That's why I'm bringing it up. That's why I offered to debate Caitlin Johnstone, but that's why no one wants to debate me, because they don't want to talk about this stuff. So Bernie had the nerve to put Italy on the list. Oh, Italy is such a great show of socialism. Italy recently elected a right-wing nationalist leader that is turning around refugee boats and implementing policies to send a bunch of refugees that are committing crime in the country back home, quite literally. Somebody recently from Italy was murdered on a boat. They went to the refugee boat and told him, you can't land in Italy, you got to go back, and they murdered a guy on the boat. You'll never hear that from Bernie Sanders. I mean, they're not socialists. They went right-wing nationalist because socialism failed. Literally. Like, look who just won the election in Italy. They're not leftist. They're going right, further right than they've ever gone, because of stupidity and naivety and complete delusion from the left wing. And that's what I tell progressive socialists and Bernie Sanders. You don't want to listen to me. People online say, Anomaly, you switched up, even though I just so clearly explained exactly why I feel the way I feel and how I went from Bernie to Trump. I'm explaining totally, and there's probably not a single thing that you could say to deflect this, because it's a whole new conversation that you've probably never had or thought of because you've been so divulged into that echo chamber. but they won't talk about it. And the reason I talk about it is I don't want a far right-wing government. I don't want super nationalism, but that's what's going to happen if you continue listening to these progressive socialist liars who keep telling you how great it is, and then it completely collapses, and then all of a sudden you go far right. How did we get here? Well, it's because you were listening to Bernie Sanders and the Young Turks spew, identity politics and lopsided factoids the entire time. So Italy is not socialist. They are going right-wing nationalist because of failed socialist and leftist open border and pro-refugee policy with no common sense built into it. There's nothing wrong with refugees, but if you want to do math and science and intelligently look at the situation and see how to help not only the refugees and not destroy your own country, you don't do what progressive socialists do, you don't do what leftists do, and you don't do what Democrats do. It's a society destroyer. He had the nerve to mention Japan, South Korea, and Poland on his list. So Bernie Sanders says, remember, our crazy idea of universal health care is a reality in Japan, South Korea, and Poland. First of all, Poland, South Korea, and Japan are the strictest countries when it comes to refugees and immigrations. Japan and South Korea are so strict, they let in like 100 or 200 refugees. That's nothing. And all of this, the Asian people in Japan and South Korea, they were out protesting. I think it was South Korea. They were out protesting refugees. We let millions of refugees in and no one cares. Europe lets in millions of refugees, no one cares. South Korea, Japan, and Poland let in like 98, and they're out in the streets protesting, saying, send them home. We don't want them there. Why is Japan one of the biggest cities with low crime? Unfortunately, I'm sorry to break it to you, they have extremely strict regulations when it comes to immigration, and they're extremely strict with the refugee policy. They see that it's destroying Europe, they see that it's destroying parts of the United States, and they don't want it anywhere near their countries. And to be honest, I don't blame them. That's why it's so safe in Japan. That's why it's safe in South Korea, because they're not completely foolish and oblivious like progressive socialists and Democrats. So he mentioned, remember our crazy idea of universal health care in South Korea, Poland, and Japan. They have literally even stricter refugee and immigration policies than the United States have. They have stricter regulation and immigration policies than Donald Trump could even dream of having. Like literally, they're like 10 times as strict as Donald Trump ever even presented to the United States. And Bernie's too big of a fraud to ever mention that to people. And to be honest, that's probably the only way that socialism will work is if you have extremely strict immigration, because it's a system where you're stealing people's money, putting it in a pot, and then redistributing it to everybody. So it doesn't work when you have millions of people come in either illegally or from outside and tank the system and start raising crime rates and raising rape rates and raising murder rates and raising acid attack rates. So now you have more injuries and more killings and more murders. And now you have more people that are taking from the system but not putting money in. I'm not talking on a social standpoint. I'm talking basic math, literally basic mathematics. It doesn't work. That's why I agree with you. Maybe socialism could work if you have strict immigration and strict refugee policy. But does Bernie Sanders have that? Of course not. He just doesn't talk about it. No progressive socialism talk about it. No leftists talk about it anymore. That's why there's nothing left on the left. There's kindness and peace and love and equality on the Trump side. You could find it there. There's elements of it. But there's no common sense. There's no rationalities. There's no honesty. There's no real look at what's going on in the Middle East and Europe and trying to not make the same mistakes that they made. Literally, progressive socialists are the best friends of these people. They want to destroy the country with their lopsided analysis of why it would work, because it doesn't even work in all the countries that they mention. They mention Sweden, Germany, and UK. Bernie Sanders has the nerve to mention Sweden, Germany, and the United Kingdom and why universal socialism is working so well. It's not working well in Sweden, bro. The right-wing party, which the mainstream media is claiming has neo-Nazi roots, is literally leading the YouGov polls. They're higher than they've ever polled in over 100 years, and they're primed to literally take control of the Swedish government for the first time in a long time, at least over 100 years, if ever. And Bernie hasn't said a word about it. Oh, look at Sweden. It's so great. It's not great, bro. I'm not saying it's not great. It's an amazing place. It's a beautiful place. I'm sure it's safe in most areas. But there's hundreds of explosions, hundreds of grenade attacks. Recently, BBC did a report of Sweden and found out that over 50% of rape is coming from foreign-born people. And apparently, according to some statistics, that violent rape is up 70% or something from foreign-born people. But what I'm trying to tell you is BBC just did that report yesterday. It's in the mainstream media. That's their report. That's not my report. I've been explaining what's going on in Sweden for 2-3 years now, maybe less than that. And BBC just caught up yesterday. And it's like, yeah, you know what? They are right. Of course, the explosions, the grenade attacks, they didn't just come out of the blue. They come when you take 500, 600, 700,000 refugees from countries where there's grenade attacks, explosions, and people chopping people's heads off, and people sacrificing women and, not allowing them to see the light of day. And you take those people and you put them into your country without vetting them or properly, putting them to the test of like, do they want to join our culture? Do they want to, join free speech? And do they want to, contribute to the economy? Or do they want to stand in the street and rape people? And I'm not saying all refugees. I'm not saying all immigrants, but this is the reality. There's nothing wrong with Africans or Middle Easterns. I have tens of thousands of Middle Easterns and Africans who support my channel because they know what I'm saying is true. But there's certain people in Syria and Libya that are doing this really cruel stuff. It's the reason that Syria had a civil war in 7 or 8 years. It's the reason that people in Syria will tell you, Europe, you're crazy for taking in all those people because you took in a lot of people that we don't even want in our country. We've been fighting those people for 7 years trying to get them out of our country, and you literally just imported hundreds of thousands of them to your country. So you're importing the civil war to Europe. You're importing the nonstop violence, the nonstop crime rate surging. You're taking that and you're bringing it to that country. Meanwhile, the politicians supporting that are the ones creating the refugee crisis. So there would be no refugee crisis in Syria if they didn't go and try to kill Bashar al-Assad, the leader of Syria. There would be no refugee crisis in Libya if they didn't kill Gaddafi, the leader of Libya. So it's a very, very cruel thing. They killed the leader or they help fund the killing of the leader of Libya. They help fund the killing and the removal of the leader of Syria. Then they create their own refugee crisis, and then they take a high percentage of bad people and a high percentage of good people and ship them to Europe. It's a really sick story that's going on, and no socialist wants to talk about it, unfortunately. They just reference all these countries: Denmark, France, Germany, Hungary, Italy, Japan, South Korea, Poland, Sweden, Germany, UK, and they won't mention the downsides. Sweden rape is higher than it's ever been, and it's a large portion of the refugees that they imported from Libya and Syria. Not because there's anything wrong with Libyans and Syrians, but because when you have leftists in power and you have progressive socialists in power and when you have Democrats in power, they don't have the Martin Luther King ability to judge somebody by content of character. I don't care if you're blacker than black or whiter than white, whiter than a ghost. I want to know the content of your character. I would like to think that our government and other governments are trying to judge people based on content of their character before they bring them to the country. But that's not what progressive socialists or Democrats do. They judge people strictly on identity politics. Oh, I'm a white person and everything's my fault. Oh, you're African or you're Middle Eastern, you're the victim here. We're going to help you out. We're going to raise your taxes and we're going to help you so much because you need our help. Here, let's give a hand. No, just don't start the wars in their countries and there will be no refugee crisis. Trump overturned a $1 billion policy in Syria, and guess what? There's no refugee crisis anymore. The terrorists are completely eliminated from Syria. They're literally rebuilding terrorist tunnels and turning them into art tunnels. Syria is no longer terrorist infiltrated, so there are no refugees. But, oh well, Europe and the UK and Sweden and Denmark and France and Germany and Hungary, or all these countries, not Hungary because they didn't want to, and Bernie won't talk about that either, but all these countries imported the bad people in Syria that Syrians were trying to get rid of. And like I said, I'm not saying all people, but a lot of these people with that ideology, they're all over Europe. It's turning Europe right wing. Europe is not going left. I mean, maybe they're going progressive left, getting away from establishment left a little bit, but they're going right further than they've ever gone. So I just want to say, this is why Bernie and this is a challenge. This is not me hating. This is me supporting, showing love. I've shown more love to these people than they ever have to me. But I'm challenging you. If you're going to mention Denmark, France, Germany, Hungary, Italy, Japan, South Korea, Poland, Sweden, Germany, and the UK all the time, why don't you mention either the fact that half of them went right wing, Half of them are nationalists. There's burqa bans. There's double charges for ghettos. There's all sorts of insane things that if they came here, people would be screaming racism. Why don't you mention those things? Why don't you mention the murder rate, the gun rate, the crime rate, the knife rate, all of these things? Why don't you mention those? Why doesn't Bernie Sanders or any progressive socialist mention that in Germany and Sweden and the UK, there are hate speech laws? This is not a socialist utopia, Bernie Sanders or Jimmy Dore. There are hate speech laws that you can go to jail or get fined for a Facebook post, your Facebook post. You are literally leading your own audience to the slaughter and your own self to the slaughter. The same people that want to censor you, the same people that want to silence you, the same people that want to take government control, you're ignoring reality and saying, universal healthcare, free college, let's give more power, money, and control to the federal government. Meanwhile, it's failing all over Europe and all of the countries that you mentioned. That's all I'm asking. Have an honest debate about the UK. If you're going to mention Germany, Sweden, and the UK and not mention the hate speech laws, the fact that they're moving further right wing, the fact that Merkel and Macron's approval rating is super, super low, the fact that Sweden literally might have a right-wing government for the first time in 100 plus years in September, and when it happens, I'll be 2 years ahead of the game, just like BBC. Oh my God, I can't believe that happened. All the progressive analysts are going to be like, oh my God, they probably won't even talk about it. They'll say Sweden and Italy. Dude, Italy literally just went right wing because of failed socialist policies. They don't work because it's a backwards ideology, and I could explain it for hours. First of all, one of Julian Assange's tweets before they took Julian Assange's Twitter away was laughing at the fake progressive socialism in Sweden. He said Sweden's elites own more of the GDP in Sweden than they do anywhere in Europe. Liberal utopia, question mark? So Julian Assange was laughing. He's like, oh, you guys think that's really effective socialism? No, the elites own more power and control in Sweden than they do in anywhere else in Europe, because that's what happens when you implement socialist policies. Oh, minimum wage. Okay, now small businesses and mom and pop shops can't make money. That now the big corporations are still going to make more money. Oh, no, health is corrupt. Yeah, totally. It's terrible. The pharmacy industries are horrible. So how are we going to solve that? Oh, well, let's take all of healthcare. Let's make doctors have mandatory services that we demand them to do. And then let's take it all into one government-run regulated thing. And then we're going to push it out and we're going to raise your taxes. And we're just going to assume that that's going to raise the quality and support of your health industries. It's going to, because we're going to take the freedom away from it, the little aspect of free market that we almost kind of even have left. Not really. And then we're going to socialize it and make a singular government-run health program that the government controls. That's really going to raise, and it's just so backwards. And not only that, I could talk about that for an hour and have debates about that, but the social qualities of progressive socialists and Democrats are total fails, because everywhere that they go, everywhere that they try to implement their social policies, the bigger deal is they want open borders. They want, even though ICE stops thousands of human trafficking, operations every couple of years. They literally, arrest murderers and criminals and people who come to our country that have warrants in other countries. They do all that stuff. So progressive socialists almost, they'll pretty much all say it. ICE is pretty bad. Okay, ICE is bad. Trump is bad. The travel ban is bad. Border security is bad. So what are you really trying to do systemically to the United States? You want to raise taxes on citizens. You want to lobby to have millions of people in the country that aren't paying into the system, but they're taking from the system. It's literally not free. The Federal Reserve's not going to pay for it. China's not going to take out a loan and give it to the United States. It's going to be taxpayer dollars that pay for it. So you're going to take money away from people. You're going to make it harder to make small businesses. You're going to do all of this stuff, give more money, power, and control to the federal government, and you think that's going to stop the federal government? It's like a 2-year-old. You have to be very, very foolish and naive, and I'm telling you that they are. And on top of that, they plunder every single society that they go to because they have this naive virtue signaling, I'm better and less racist than you ideology, when it's totally not true. A lot of times they're more racist, but I don't even want to talk about racism now. They say, we have to help. We have to bring these people in. We have to let these people in. We have to do this stuff in. And then when crime goes up and murder rate goes up and acid attacks go up and governments start moving right wing and explosions are up and hate speech laws come into place. So if you speak out against it, now you're being hateful and that's hate speech and we got to censor you. When all of this stuff happens and all of the socialist countries that they mention or socialist capitalist infused countries that they mention, they don't talk about that stuff. You'll never hear Jimmy Dore talk about hate speech laws. If he does, God bless him. Hopefully he does. You'll never hear them talk about acid attacks and murder rates and crime rate and the fact that people are fleeing now to come to the United States because it's safer. You won't talk about that because they don't. It'll ruin their whole ideology because in their head it's, we're going to bring in hundreds of thousands of refugees. We're going to abolish law enforcement and border security, and we're going to raise taxes of these people here, and it's going to make really good health. Even though the root cause of bad health isn't the health industry, it's the fact that the government told us for a year, food pyramid, oh, bread and milk, just eat a lot of bread and milk and you'll be real healthy. I mean, they're literally destroying your health purposely, or, I don't know why else they would do that. So the root causes of health are bad mindset. Lack of exercise. Who do you surround yourself to? What media do you listen to? Not only mentally what you intake, stress and your mental mind state literally controls your health more than anything you can ever imagine. Your diet and your exercise, routine controls your health. Your daily routine, whether it be how you sit, how you think, what you do, that is the root cause of health. United States is one of the most unhealthy countries. You get people coming here from Syria and from South America, they laugh at the quality of our meat. I've literally had my friends from the Middle East be like, bro, your chicken here is pathetic. It's not real chicken. Like, what are you guys eating? We're not even eating real food. You're eating fake food made by corporations and government that's not even real food. It destroys your body at every turn. You're eating fake food. You're drinking fake drinks. You're not drinking enough water. You're not drinking clean enough water. You're doing all these horrible things and then saying, oh, the way to solve this would be we got to make the government take all of our money, and then if they take our money and singularize healthcare and force doctors to work against their will, then we're going to be healthy all of a sudden. Of course you're not going to be healthy. That's why, if you notice, a lot of socialists are not very physically healthy. No offense, but it's like, how are you going to tell me how to be healthy when I'm out running 10 miles a week? You're going to steal my money, siege my property, take away my freedom and ability to, try to get high quality health because you're going to destroy the quality. And, oh no, that's not going to happen because Bernie Sanders runs to the poll. No, it's definitely going to happen. Trust me. You're going to tell me how to eat healthy and live healthy when you don't even live healthy yourself? I'm not taking advice from somebody. Show me how many socialists are in really, really great shape. And I don't care. You could be not a socialist and not be in great shape. I'm not hating on it. But America is not in good shape. America has ridiculously high stats when it comes to heart disease. America has ridiculously high stats when it comes to obesity. It's straight up pathetic, how out of whack we are, and we're supposed to be the best country in the world. We're ridiculously high in pharmacy and opioid abuse. We're leading the world. We have hundreds of thousands of people dying from pharmacy pills and opioids and drugs every year, and not just illegal drugs. We're talking about drugs that the doctor gives to you and will continue to give to you because the health system is ridiculously flawed. And I'm not hating on Western medicine. I think it's great. I think it's amazing. God bless the pharmacy corporations. They're doing what they got to do. And, every pill works for somebody, but we're being inundated with pills. We're being obsessively pushed these things that we don't need. You have certain studies saying that like a ridiculously high amount of percentage of Americans are on these pills, depression pills, weight pills, this pills, that pills, this pills, that pills. They're eating a lot of bread, drinking a lot of milk, not taking care of themselves, eating fake chicken, eating fake food. I'm not saying I'm above it. I live in this country, so of course I eat all this terrible stuff too. But what I'm saying is, socialist healthcare, it's not universal. The universe is not going to come down and give you free healthcare and free education. It's going to be government-sanctioned little brainwashing institutions to turn you into little socialists and little leftist liberals who have no idea what's going on in the rest of the world and refuse to talk to somebody. And then if somebody tells you the truth, then it's hate speech. We got to censor him because he broke our echo chamber and we have no discussion or rational argument against it. It's not going to solve actual health. It's not going to stop the root of health. I said this one time on a progressive station and they cursed at me and I blocked them on Twitter because I don't need that negativity in my life. They don't want to hear it. because I shattered their whole echo chamber. Universal healthcare doesn't come from the universe. It comes from the taxpayer. It's going to raise the taxes. It's going to make the quality lower. It's going to take the freedom away from doctors and individuals who seek better care that's not factory farmed by a singular government source. And it's never, ever, ever going to stop the root cause of why everyone's so unhealthy in this country. It's the mindset. It's the media. A lot of progressive socialists have a very negative, nasty mindset. If they didn't, they wouldn't be socialist. A lot of them are not physically or mentally healthy. If they were, they probably wouldn't be so hateful and naive and inability to actually listen and have a debate. Nobody wants to talk. Normally, we don't want to debate you. We just want to call you Fox News. Well, of course, because you have an unhealthy mindset and you're projecting that unhealthy mindset onto the entire world. So you will reap what you sow. And that goes for me as well. That's why my ideology is change yourself to change the world. You don't need to steal my money to improve your health. You don't need to force mandatory health care that steals thousands of dollars from me like Obamacare every single year that I can't use, that steals my money and stops me from improving my health. It stops me from getting a water filtration system. It stops me from getting a massage or physical therapy. It stops me from getting healthy food and being able to eat organically. It literally, you're stealing my health, you're stealing my money and giving it to the federal government while not addressing all of the root causes of the health epidemic in the United States, which is opioids, pills, diet, mental health, definitely the media, definitely people's habits, all of these things. Socialists will never tell you any of that stuff. They will laugh it off, they will mock it off and act like it's going to be free from the universe. They're going to come down and grant you with perfect health and it's going to be a flawless system. It's not working in Denmark. It's not working in France. It didn't work in Greece. It's not working in Hungary. Or Hungary's super nationalist, so maybe it is working because they don't act like Bernie Sanders or Jimmy Dore or Caitlin Johnstone, and they're not fake identity politics pandering. We're going to act like everybody else is the victim and not do basic math and science and try to figure out how to actually help those countries and how to actually help our countries without tanking both at the same time. Italy is right-wing now. Japan, South Korea, and Poland are ridiculously strict. They make Donald Trump look like Chuck Schumer. They're so anti-immigrant and anti-refugee. Sweden, Germany, and the UK are not golden liberal utopias. They're failing police states that are literally either going to go right-wing or going to cease to be a first world country. I'm sorry, I'm going there. I mean, what else is going to happen when you have hate speech laws? You literally get arrested. Tommy Robinson in the UK is out there trying to explain to people, hey, there's guys like 13, 10, 9, I don't know how many guys, there's a bunch of older men grooming a bunch of children and making child rape gangs to rape your children. And they say, oh, Tommy, don't talk about that, bro. That's hate speech. You're going to jail. So you go to jail for trying to explain to people that there's people out there raping kids. But if you let millions of people into the country who are literally going to rape people at high percentages, then all of a sudden, you're a complete saint. Oh, I'm a liberal socialist because I don't want to do basic math and science. I don't want to look. It's in all mainstream publications. The UK murder rate is up. The knife rate is up. The crime rate is up. The gun rate is up. They have no guns, but the gun rate is up. There is hate speech laws. Germany's violent crime via refugees is up. That's not me saying this. I know they'd probably watch this and be, oh, Anomaly's so hateful. This is Reuters. This is mainstream media who doesn't even want to tell you. They're telling you there's nothing wrong with refugees. Yeah, I get it. All of our parents, all of our families came from another country. We're all immigrants. My parents came from Poland, Italy, Puerto Rico. But you best believe they probably went through some sort of vetting process. And these people coming from these countries, there's nothing wrong with these countries. There's nothing wrong with people from these countries. But there are civil wars where people are literally enslaving each other. People are literally blowing each other up. This is happening in those countries. And you're not only not fixing those countries, helping to fix those countries, they're destroying those countries, creating the refugee crisis, then acting like they're so virtuous by not trying to have any sort of common sense authority into figuring out who's who and should we bring these people to our country and should we bring these people? I mean, what are we going to bring the whole world? Yeah, let's just bring, what is there, 2 billion people without clean sanitation or a couple billion people in India? Let's just import them all here. What do we have, 320 million? Yeah, screw it, we should just we'll just let everybody come in. Just let 2 billion people, let's just turn the United States into the Middle East or India. That'll be great. And there's nothing wrong with India. I have a lot of Indian supporters, and I hope to go there someday. I'm just saying, if you don't properly analyze what's going on, you're going to not only not fix the countries that you think you're helping, you're not only not going to help the people that you think you're going to help, but you are literally going to tank your society economically, socially, physically, and it's happening all over the Europe. It's not a liberal utopia. It's not a socialist universal healthcare utopia. It's a system that is not going to get better over time unless they change things. If Donald Trump wasn't there, if it's a Democrat or a progressive socialist, things are not going to get better here. Things are going to get worse here. It's only someone like Donald Trump who's going to make it better because he's doing unpopular, blunt things that nobody wants to say or talk about. There's nothing wrong, in my personal perspective, with anybody of any religion or race or gender, ethnicity. I don't have a racist, xenophobic, or anti-religious bone in my body, much so to the discontent of a lot of people who support me. But you have to be intelligent when you figure out what's going on in the world, because China is hacking our military. They're hacking our FDIC. They're, spying on certain senators and congressmen. You have Russia doing what Russia's doing. You've heard about it 50 million times. You have Iran and Turkey, who literally have admitted multiple times they want to basically destroy Western civilization. There's newspaper clippings from Erdogan or Erdogan, however you say his name, from Turkey, saying, if you guys don't cool it, I'm going to send my people to your country. Does that sound like something that we would do or anyone else would do? You use your people as if they're warriors, saying we're going to infiltrate your country if you don't stop doing what you're doing. They're admitting to you that they're doing this. Religion, race, gender aside, it's no secret. It's no secret that there's tens of millions and hundreds of millions of people on this planet with an extremist ideology or an offshoot of a religion that's more extremist than the rest that can't coexist with Western values, don't want to coexist with Western values, and literally want to do the opposite in many ways. And they're doing that in England. Free speech doesn't exist in England. To be honest, free speech doesn't exist in the United States. Recently, David Horowitz has a foundation talking about exactly what I'm talking about, and he got shut down by the Southern Poverty Law Center. They decided to pressure Visa and MasterCard to not accept donations. So now the two biggest credit card, debit cards in the country won't accept money. He might go out of business now because free speech doesn't exist in the United States. And I'm not even blaming religion. Is it extremist religion that's stopping it in the United States? No. Is the government, is Donald Trump and the government doing it? No. It's stupid leftist. It's insane, naive, completely backwards, foolish, progressive ideology, left-leaning Democrats, socialists, all of these type people. It's leftist ideology that is doing all these things. We don't need a corrupt religion, and we don't need a government to do it when the useful idiots will literally march to the tune and do everything negative that's going on in the Middle East and Europe. They're doing it here. Free speech doesn't exist in the United States anymore. It's being masqueraded behind organizations and activism and liberalism and progressivism. They are literally trying to tank the entire country. I don't know another way to say it, and I am down to debate any single other person. I clearly explained why I like Bernie Sanders there. I clearly explained why I like Donald Trump. I clearly explained why universal health care is a complete joke, and it doesn't target any of the actual causes of why America is so unhealthy. It's dangling a fruit at the end. You got to go at the core of why it's doing it. And to this day, there's been nobody who has been able to, refute what I've said. They just laugh it off and run back to their echo chamber and be like, "Whoa, that's so dumb that Anomaly wants people to take care of their minds and bodies and spirits. That's crazy talk that people should be able to change themselves to change the world. Haha, that's dumb because we think that we'll give the money to the government and the government's going to do that for us." I mean, come on. It's just an absolute joke. And when it comes to Bernie's tweets about how great Denmark, France, Germany, Hungary, Italy, Japan, South Korea, Poland, Sweden, Germany, and the UK are, I'm not saying they're not great. But he's leaving out major facts about all of them, whether it be the fact that socialism and leftist ideology failed to the point that they've become even further right than we are here, or the fact that it's literally not working. It's literally leading to, a really bad epidemic in Europe. That's why Trump says it the way he says it. People laugh at him, but in 3 years, everyone will be like, "Oh, wow, I really didn't notice it was that bad." It happened in Sweden. It's happening in the UK. It's happening in Germany. Japan, Poland, and South Korea don't play that game. Italy went right-wing. Denmark is going super far right. If the United States did what Denmark's doing, you would literally say, they would say it's the return of the Nazis. But Denmark can do it, and no progressive wants to talk about it. They're like, yeah, well, at least they got universal health care. That's good, right? They don't have free speech. You know, they have a failing country that has like literally crime running rampant all over the place. It's going up. I mean, it's always been going down. Now it's going up, and that doesn't seem to be a problem with everybody. But at least they have universal socialist government-run healthcare that is a mandatory, you know, tax, because that really helps people's health. Rant over. So once again, this is my full explanation with a pretty intense rant at the end of why I supported Bernie Sanders earlier. I'm getting rid of the rumors and the people who don't want to listen to a word I'm saying, and you know, now all of a sudden just want to say, oh, Anomaly did a 180 because he's telling the truth now and all the people I'm listening to are lying. That's why I like Bernie Sanders. That's why I like Donald Trump now. That's why I think he's underrated. That's why I know the media is lying, and they're literally 2 years behind my reports. They're like, breaking news. We did a survey and we found out Anomaly and Paul Joseph Watson have been telling the truth for the last 2 years. Oh, wow. Like, we really already didn't know. And I'm just going to say, I'm down to debate. I'm challenging. I'm not hating. See, there's a difference. When people will hate on me, they will say, Anomaly's Fox News, Anomaly's right-wing, Anomaly's a fake, Anomaly's racist or terrible, and none of those are true. That's all they'll be able to say, if they'll say anything, because they can't ideologically or intellectually debunk what I'm saying, because in order to debunk what I'm saying, they would have to embrace a reality, a very true reality, that would shatter their entire illusion. So that's all they could do is, you know, Caitlin Johnstone, once again, one of the best progressive writers. She's one of the best writers on the planet. I'm not a hater. I tell her all the time, you go, girl. You're one of the best, you know, journalists on the planet. But she's one of the brightest and can't even debate with me without using identity politics and false labeling, because if she's going to embrace what I'm saying, it's going to shatter the whole illusion. So you can't do that. You just got to make fun of people and distance yourself. And I'm not hating. I say this because I do care about the country. I do care about Jimmy Dore and Caitlin Johnstone. I love them. I'm a fan of them. I'm doing it as a friend of them and their audiences. I'm challenging you. When people challenge me, that'll question my ideas, and that'll bring the best perspective. You hear the best of both worlds, and then everybody learns. But the echo chamber of the progressive socialist has gotten just as bad, if not worse, than the echo chamber of, you know, the Democratic Party. I mean, they're almost just as bad now. I'm just going to be honest. It's like, oh, we're so much better because we think the Democrats are so dumb. It's like you've become equally as much as foolish. I actually think the Democrats are more impressive because they have no idea what's going on. So it's like they're just in their own world. But progressive socialists know everything that's going on, and they still have this ridiculously insane ideology that bigger government will solve all of these problems. So it's like, I find them even more off-putting than Democrats. Democrats are under a media spell, and they don't even know up from down anymore. Progressive socialists know everything that's going on, and they still decide to be sheep to the slaughter, decide to lead their audience and their supporters into pure demise and into pure, you know, lack of self-accountability. They're like, oh, I don't know what Jordan Peterson said. I don't understand it. He said, make your bed and brush your teeth. If you don't understand what Jordan Peterson said, life is going to be hard for you and everybody who listens to you, because he's basically talking about basic psychology, human psychology, and self-accountability and self-awareness. If you don't understand that, I'm not surprised, because if you did understand that, you wouldn't ever be a socialist. And that's one of the most important things above policy and politics, is taking care of yourself, is literally being the change that you want to see in the world. Because if you're unhealthy and you're going to tell everybody how to run healthcare, it doesn't look very good. If you're mentally unfit and you're literally, you know, don't even have it together internally, and you're externally telling the whole world this is the ideology, and if you stray from it, you're a terrible person. I don't say that on my worst day. Even on my craziest day, I say, hey, you can disagree with me, research for yourself, but at the core of it, just be the change that you want to see in the world. You know what I'm saying? Better yourself in a way of, you know, don't hate on people so hard. But I'm challenging for the last time. This is a challenge because, you know, life will come at you fast. Like the Fabio commercials, life will come at all of us fast. And if I'm leading people in the wrong direction, I should be called out, and I shouldn't, you know, I should know, or at least be challenged ideologically. I'm not hating on any of these people personally. I'm just strictly the ideology. But if these people continue to lead people down the wrong direction, I'm just going to end with this. They're going to be the useful idiots and the sheep that ends up fueling the exact fire that they think they're fighting. The Washington Post on Snapchat was recently promoting socialism. The Washington Post, super establishment publication promoting socialism? Wow, wouldn't that be wild if they pretended to hate socialism for a while and they just used socialists like useful idiots and pawns to get more power and control for themselves? Because socialism is not a threat to any government or any Democrat ideology. Socialism is the next step for the Democrats. Socialism is where you go after you get that control, then you get more control, then you get more control, then you get more control, and then you get some of the most evil regimes in history because they have too much control over the press, over freedom of speech, over everything, and the people don't have any money because they stole all their property and their taxes. It literally happened in multiple countries. That's far leftism economically, is take control of stuff. It's not done from libertarianism. So, of course the establishment's not really fighting the socialists. They're just pretending to, or maybe they don't like them now, but in a year, 2 years, and everyone's going to cheer, yes, we got universal health care. Yes, we got more socialism. Yes, we're giving our taxes to the U.S. government. They're just going to use you like pawns because you're literally fueling their fire. In no way, shape, or form is socialism a threat to a Democratic Party. Socialism is a boost to the Democratic Party. They know this. They're sanctioning and supporting it all over the place. That's why you see the Washington Post supporting socialism. Of course they are. Because Jimmy Dore, Caitlin Johnstone, Kyle Kalinske, all these people, very intelligent, very honest people. Caitlin, I think, is one of the best journalists of the last couple of years. Jimmy Dore, I think, is one of the best news analysts of the last couple of years. And Kyle Kalinske is one of my favorite news analysts to watch that I really don't agree with ideologically. But I'm just letting people know, these are the people that are going to use you to say, oh yeah, we got the universal health care for sure. It's not a threat to any establishment. It's giving full control of the health organization to the government. It's taking money and power away from the citizen. There's nothing about it that's a threat to the Democratic Party. And they might be mad at you now, but when they're not in a year and 2 years and you celebrate, really think about it. Because how is that anyway a threat? And this is a challenge, like I said. It's like a basketball game. Like, I'm going to dunk real quick, not because I'm trying to hurt you or anything. I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to help and save your audience from, like, pure demise. And I would just, to be honest, just to wrap it up, you don't have to report the way I report. You don't have to say what I say. But I would love to have a debate or a conversation because I'm tired of all of these people referencing Europe like it's this liberal socialist utopia when they're literally pushing far right. Europe can be used as a learning tool for us. Yeah, we could use South Korea, Poland, Sweden, UK, but we have to learn from all sides of that. Let's talk about the universal health care. Let's talk about the immigration policy. Let's talk about their refugee policy. Let's talk about their economy. Let's talk about their social policies. Let's talk about their media. Let's talk about their hate speech laws. Let's not just talk about that part and ignore all the terrible parts, which is driving them super far right. And that's the difference between, say, Poland, South Korea, and Japan. Maybe they have socialist universal health care, but they're not ideologically, socially, very foolish like all leftists are in the United States. And there's not a single progressive socialist or a single, leftist now. If there is, let me know. Maybe Bill Maher, maybe that's the only one. Nobody's willing to look at the reality of what's actually happening in Europe because of leftist ideology, because socialist ideology in the United States isn't nationalist, it's not pro-America, it's literally destructive because they don't want to look at the hard truths, they don't want to tell the truth, they have no pride in their country whatsoever, they literally just want to push their agenda. No matter what it is, universal health care, free education, blah, 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 ignore the downsides and just push. And I'm going to say something about it because, I don't even like talking about people or about other things, but I wanted to say why I liked Bernie Sanders, why I don't trust him now, why I think he's lying, why I know that all progressive socialists are misleading people. And, I just want to explain all of these countries are not, no matter how many times you lie about it, they're not socialist utopia, and if you want to implement these socialist policies, you have to mix it with very common sense, conservative immigration policy. You just do, or else it won't work economically and mathematically and scientifically. I'm not hating or being negative or nasty. It's just you don't find leftists, every progressive socialist, they're running around with Linda Sarsour and Sean King and people who just say, no, that's good, that everybody's racist. They don't have the blunt ability to tell the truth like Trump. They pander and have identity politics and this false sense of like supremacy just like Democrats. They're exactly the same socially, and it's 1,000% destructive, not only to the United States, but every single country that they reference every day like it's a huge success. That wasn't. It was an experiment that didn't work well, for the country. Maybe it worked well for a few people, but overall, it's not going in the direction that they think it is, and I don't know at what point people will realize that it's not. I mean, you have mainstream media covering what I covered 2 years ago today, but that's not going to be enough. I think people are so conditioned and so attached to these beliefs that there's not a word that anyone could say that will make them think differently. It's like so ingrained in their mind. I'm not attached to anything. I'll have a conversation with these people, probably agree with them on 75% of stuff. I'll probably agree with them on the wars, but I will add some common sense and rationality and logic that might be a little cruel, in some people's minds, but on a worldwide scale, it's just how things work. And this is one of my favorite metaphors that people say it's not true, but it is. It's like leaving your door open or having no security on your house or your apartment building. If you live in a big city and your apartment building has no security, no sort of, locks or borders, you're literally always going to get taken advantage of. Every single night, every single day, the neighborhood's going to tell people, and you're going to be robbed, maybe worse, because you're leaving yourself open. And progressive socialists, while they mean well, while they're kind and kind-hearted and loving and know certain things, they're super naive, super weak, and just absolutely delusional when it comes to this type of stuff. And I'm sorry, but it's true. How else can you, rationalize the stuff that Bernie Sanders did to them? And a lot of people still support him. It's like the guy spits in your face and you say, thank you, Bernie Sanders, for making it rain. Because it's weakness, it's naivety, and these are the things that people will continuously take advantage of. I wish the world wasn't that way. I wish I could leave all my windows and my door wide open, and I wish there was no walls, and no locks on apartment complexes and buildings and houses everywhere. But that's just not the way the world works. And you think it's bad here. You can't do that in a city. Go to the Middle East. Go to Syria during the Civil War. Go to Libya right now. Go to, a lot of these countries where the people are coming from. It's way worse. It's way worse. And these people are way worse because they've lived through way worse. And in some cases, combine it with extremist ideology and extremist religion, you're getting people that will literally blow themselves up or murder somebody and laugh at you in your face and rape people in public. I've talked to multiple girls who've been to Paris and they're walking and 6 dudes come up to them and literally try to rape them in public. This is a real story. These are real things that happen every day. You think Americans are bad? You hate white people so much in America. Oh my God, Donald Trump's so bad and white conservatives are so bad. Go move to these countries and you'll find you'll be crying, begging to come back to the privileged, soft society of the United States of America that is so weak and so soft that even allows you a platform and a place to even have and entertain those thoughts. My friends in Syria laugh at you. They're like, man, these people are foolish. But that's how great America is. You can literally be that naive and foolish and be able to survive and have those thoughts, because you don't have the privilege of having those thoughts if you grow up in India or the Middle East, South America, Mexico, any of these places, which is why, to be honest, a lot of immigrants that I talk to, they don't act like liberals and progressives and socialists because they escaped regimes that act like those people and dupe people like that. So it's like, you really want to talk about immigrants and people from other countries, they don't think like you because they've seen the world, they've lived through other regimes. I've met people from Iran who say Trump's 100% right. They don't agree with Kyle Kalinske and progressive socialists. They say Trump's right, Iran's out of control, America's better, and I'm glad that Trump's doing what he's doing. Not everybody, I'm not saying everyone agrees, but this whole ideology that they have is so weak and so foolish, and they will continue to get taken advantage of. And I'm a good friend. I could sit here and let them get taken advantage of. I could let you be weak and soft and foolish and naive and constantly get lied to by Bernie Sanders and constantly get spit in the face of and constantly get punched a million times, and you just sit there and take it and say, oh yeah, this is the way I'm going to be because I believe in universal health care, so I'm just going to take this. Or someone like me that some people listen to, maybe trust remotely, or I don't know what you want to call it. I really do care about you so much that I'm putting, sometimes my peace of mind on the line to let you know, wake up, because it's not a woke ideology that's so much smarter than Democrat ideology. It's actually in many ways even dumber than what Democrats are doing. Democrats are opposing Trump. Whatever Trump does, he does the opposite. So their ideology is like, just do the opposite, get him out of office, and do whatever he says not to do. Progressives have a strict ideology that might even be dumber than that, because eventually they'll be right, but the whole progressive ideology is a total fail socially, economically, politically, and Europe is a great example of why it's not working, and it makes life worse for everybody and doesn't improve the countries that you're actually taking the people in from. You're not helping those countries either. Those countries are not magically saved because you took a few 100,000 people in that literally aren't, in many cases, women and children. There's no women and children on the boat because they're not coming to, save their family and come for a better life. It's not always the case. I'm not saying all the time just so I don't get misquoted, but like a large high percent, there's scientific and mathematical proof all over Europe. It's a total fail. Thank you guys so much for listening. Hopefully these are the conversations I don't really completely enjoy having, but they're necessary to have because I have to smash the echo chamber. When I see really smart people and really great people being so weak, being so foolish, being so naive, being so dishonest, and being so, putting a microscope on certain parts and completely ignoring other parts, I have to at least mention it. I'm not saying Europe's not an amazing place. I'm not saying, Asia's not amazing and other parts of the world aren't incredible, beautiful, amazing places. But what I am saying is, if you're going to talk about that stuff all the time, I'll have a conversation about it, but not if you only put a microscope on the good things, ignore the bad things, and then try to bring all of the bad qualities that are going on there to the United States of America. And that's what they're doing. They're trying to tank our country under the guise of liberalism and liberal supremacy. I'm a better person than you because I'm so naive and so foolish. Thank you guys for listening. I could talk all day, but I'm going to take a break and do other stuff. Have a great day. I'll be back tomorrow. My new song tomorrow is I Like Trump. It's going to be on Tidal, Apple Music, Spotify, all that stuff. Let's see what happens. Stream it, save it, download it, whatever you got to do. I Like Trump out tomorrow. These things happen. It's explicit, so there is the F word in it. Just warning you for people that don't like rap or cursing. This song's not for you. Sign up to my free email list. It's in the comment section, and I'll be back later. Hopefully someone will debate me soon and actually consider what I'm saying.